Hey there, 3DMJers. This is Andrea Valdez, and you're listening to the 3D Muscle Journey podcast. This is the second episode in a row, which was recorded in person with three of the coaches chilling on a couch together in Sacramento, California during July of 2019. Today, you're going to hear Brad Loomis, Alberto Nunez, and Eric Helms discuss all kinds of nutrition advice that's probably not nutrition advice that you've ever heard before. They aren't going to tell you what macros to hit, how many calories to consume, or what timeline of dieting or gaining is best for your physique or strength. What you will hear is a treasure trove of the many dieting roadblock scenarios that our coaches have learned to deal with over their decades of experience. So like if you've ever been in a place where you think you're following your diet to a T but get stuck at a certain weight very early, if you've ever felt crappy even when you're eating a lot of food, if you can't sleep at night for some strange reason, if you have excessive bloat with less food, if you use the bathroom too much or too little, or if you've ever had any other seemingly odd dieting situation that you can't understand, these guys have probably seen it and have helped people through it. And you listeners are lucky enough to hear about it today. Can almost guarantee that you'll learn something about your food or your behaviors that you've never considered before. But if not, I promise you'll at least be entertained by the stories that are presented throughout this episode. Eric's going to open up the show with a couple of good examples right off the bat, so I'll go ahead and let you guys listen to him kind of dive into it. Please enjoy this episode titled Unconventional Nutrition Advice with Alberto Nunez, Eric Helms, and Brad Loomis.
All right, so we're back on the 3D Muscle Journey podcast talking about nutrition and not what you might expect, where we often talk about macros, quantitative values, eating up, game planning, but really the stuff that often gets left to the side because we haven't quantified it. Like, I'll give an example. Sometimes you'll have a competitor who all of a sudden, way too early in prep, is getting really poor sleep. The first thing I assume is their caffeine's too high. And they go, no, I only take my pre-workout and I have a coffee in the morning. And I go, well, how much diet soda are you having? And they go, oh, I don't know. And then we actually quantify it, and they're having like a liter of diet soda throughout the night, and it ends up being basically the equivalent of multiple coffees from the hours of 5 p.m. to 9 p.m. And we cut that out, and all of a sudden they can sleep. That's just probably one of the most obvious examples, but there's tons out there. What have you guys seen?
Ooh, man, there's like new ones every year, basically, right?
Depends on what Walden Farms created this year, right?
Yeah. I think the biggest one, the one that occurs the most often is when people try to make the suck go away, or there's just a certain level of suck that you're going to have to deal with, and I think focusing too much on that pain and discomfort and wanting to find a way to make it go away completely. I mean, there's things we can do that are basic and simple, and once you form that strategy, it's kind of out of sight, out of mind. You're not thinking about it, but there's some weird things that people do, like maybe backloading their food way too much. Using foods that aren't very calorically dense, but perhaps way too much, because bloated is better than hungry, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's probably the most common one. It's just like dealing with the fact that at a certain point it's going to hurt,
Yeah.
And trying to focus too much on making that go away, I think just makes it more painful and agonizing at the end, because it's with you and you're thinking about it all the time.
Yeah.
So I think that's a big one, is just learning to deal with the fact that, hey, to a certain extent, it's going to be uncomfortable. Do a few basic fundamental things. Don't drink your carbs, things like that. But once you have that sorted out, it's like, just stop trying to, don't think that you're going to be able to cure it 100%.
Yeah, it's kind of one of those things that I'm experiencing. I've been experiencing this the last couple months, where in my own prep, where it's by trying to solve the problem, you're focusing on the problem, and the problem can only get slightly better.
Yeah.
So for example, I've had days where my entire carbohydrate intake was mostly from blueberries, watermelon, strawberries, apples, and carrot. And that does make me feel like that's a ton of water. It's like drinking an extra gallon of water per day. If you hit like 2,400, something over 2,000 calories of mostly that. It is a ton of fiber. It fills you up. Like I said, I do actually get to the point where I'm not hungry, but I'm super bloated. But it does weird shit to my bowel movements. It does weird shit to my sleep because I wake up in the middle of the night to pee more often than I normally would. It messes with my weigh-ins for a little bit. It makes me look weird for a bit. And all of that, A, has an emotional cost.
Yeah.
And then B, I'm making a decision at every meal of, how can I be less hungry? Which makes you think about how hungry I am. So I definitely think you're 100% right. You should have some baseline behaviors, which probably don't get talked about enough, like have low energy density foods, eat a lot of fruits and vegetables, have, things like Greek yogurt and tuna and proteins and fibers that are low in calories and weigh a lot, but probably don't figure out what is the way to eat the most food and the least amount of calories all the time. Because it does force you into that mindset too far and causes those issues. I think that's a really good point, Berto.
Yeah, and to be honest with you, that's people's ingenuity sometimes scares me.
Yeah.
It's me as a coach, that's the thing that scares me is what is it that is causing this issue that I don't know about? Because we only know what we know, right?
Yeah.
And a good example of this was the pumpkin craze back in 06, 07, 08, 09.
Everyone was orange.
When everyone did not need a base tan because beta-carotene poisoning.
Exactly. Yeah. We were all orange. I remember that vividly because we were eating pumpkin 4 and 5 times a day,
Is that Dream Tan number 4? Nah.
No.
That's a can of pumpkin, homie.
Every day.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, just a lot of times when people are doing things that on our end don't make sense, or at least what we're seeing doesn't make sense, and it's all kind of directly a result of their ingenuity, figuring out ways to make themselves less hungry, make it suck less. That's what scares me, and not just that's what'll keep me up at night.
Yeah, such a huge cascade comes from it. So first off, when you first start out coaching, you don't necessarily, like you said, know what you don't know. We hadn't seen these things. So we have these spreadsheets and these protocols all based around the things that we think matter. And there was a time when that was basically just cardio, training, macros, and then how'd your week go? And then that last subjective component of how did your week go, that's going to be dictated based on what that client knows, what they're aware of, how experienced they are, what they think we want to hear, et cetera.
Yeah.
So we get these wildly different results from person to person. And then we don't know why someone looks off, weighs in weird, or their data looks funky, why they can't get sleep. And then you start fixing problems that don't exist. Like, I'm going to give you melatonin, or I want you to increase your sodium intake, or I want you to, increase your water intake, or I want you to get some blood work done. And in reality, it's just like, oh, you're eating way too much fiber right now, or you've got too much caffeine in your diet soda. And we end up causing problems by trying to fix things that aren't problems because we didn't know what to ask, or we didn't know what was happening. So I think some of the things that I've done that have made that better is just when everything's all wacky and crazy, I just go, hey, let me see what you're eating. Let me just take a look at your MyFitnessPal for the last 4 days. And also, what aren't you tracking on your MyFitnessPal? Not like, well, are you eating macros that you're not? No, but like, what things don't you feel like you need to track? Like your coffee, your tea, your soda, all those things that don't have calories.
Yeah.
Let me know all about that. And then how much gum are you having? Man, like some of this stuff, some of it does add up to calories. Like if you have 20 packs of Equal in a day, that's actually about 60 calories.
And for some people, that's a bowl of oatmeal.
Yes. And if you're having, 2 to 3 packs of Equal in every drink and 1 to 3 with every meal, and then you're also having diet sodas and you're also chewing sugar-free gum, that literally can add up to 100 to 200 calories, and it's worse that I've seen. And when you've got people eating 1,200 to 2,000 calories, we're talking about 10 to 20% increases in their calorie intake for the day.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes the entire deficit, So yeah, it can actually result in body composition changes and a removal of the deficit, but more often what is happening is that it's messing with sodium, water, digestion, sleep, and other all of these aspects that mask our ability to gauge fat loss or use the metrics like weigh-ins or visuals.
Or even visuals.
Yes.
Yeah, that visuals, you just started to say that. Yeah. Yeah, sometimes my solution to visual change is like, okay, we didn't look like this a month ago. Mm-hmm. And whatever you have been doing these last 2 or 3 weeks, you need to stop doing.
Yeah.
And you need to go back to what it was you're doing a month ago. And sometimes that just means raising calories, which sounds crazy.
Yeah.
But when you raise calories, they quit doing whatever it was that they were doing to decrease the suck. Well, I get more calories now. So then they go back to whatever that was, whatever their habits were.
You end up having a net bigger deficit.
Exactly. Because the deficit that we did program ends up getting masked.
Yeah. Or they're having soup and their sodium triples or something like that.
Yeah. Or they're drinking their pickle juice.
Yes. No, we won't name any names, but I just had an image of a client who drank pickle juice.
Yeah.
And gained 8 pounds and from one
and
week
looked
to the
terrible.
next.
You pointed at me. I was like, no, I've never done that.
No, it was your athlete.
I've looked at relish and I'm like, boy, that looks tasty. And
it was your athlete.
Wow. Yeah, that's not good.
And even more worse, it was because that person had binged and so bad that you then had to take them low for a bunch of days, and they had to then deal with being on the low calories by doing things like drinking pickle juice.
Yeah.
So you're 100% right, and I think that is one of those many casualties of war from the if it fits your macros and bro fights. It's like, yeah, maybe dairy doesn't actually make you gain fat. Yeah, maybe keeping your sodium low is not actually important for fat loss. Yeah, maybe certain foods are not the keys, but as a side effect of doing all those things that the super clean bro traditional bodybuilder does is there's just way less variability. Mm-hmm. Now, that said, I'd much rather go in eyes wide open and say, well, we don't need to be unnecessarily strict. We don't need to have that as a side effect. We can purposefully understand that sodium, fiber, way different water intakes and caffeine and artificial sweeteners in large amounts can cause these issues. Not just let's just eat broccoli, rice, and chicken. Mm-hmm. There's certainly a better way, but it was one of those things that just kind of got swept under the rug. Like I used to do a bro prep and I would look consistently better. My weigh-ins were more solid. That's all in your head. Mm-hmm. Maybe not.
Yeah, exactly. Well, and sometimes that is a solution. I think that might have been something I got from you, is that sometimes you just have to have that hard talk, and we always talk about it's an extreme sport, and we do have to sometimes go to those extremes where it's like, okay, right now we're going to have to do a little bit of a menu. We're going to have to make up a menu here, make sure that we are doing things A, properly, and B, eliminating all that variability.
Yeah.
And a lot of times that will teach you what was going wrong or what were the variables, et cetera, et cetera. And forgive me if I'm not correct that I learned that from you with the menu approach for a short period of time. But yeah, I remember when I followed a menu, I never weighed myself. I never weighed myself my entire prep, just because it was so predictable. Every week I was a little bit leaner, a little bit tighter, a little bit leaner, a little bit tighter. I mean, I never had to worry about.
Yeah, and if you weren't tight enough, you'd make the next adjustment to the foods, right?
Yeah. We'd reduce from, full cup of oatmeal to half a cup, or 5-ounce potato to 4-ounce potato, or whatever, And to this day, that still is a way of fixing it. But again, the fear is the unintended consequences.
Yeah, there's downsides to both.
Exactly.
And it's finding that middle ground. And there's also just more stress associated with managing more variables. Mm-hmm. And that's something where the overly sciencey, OCD, hardcore bodybuilders really get it wrong, where they think, I'm not good enough, I've got to optimize more, I'll just control more variables. So it's like there's a trade-off here. The more you think, I want things to be controlled, then okay, I do this. Each one of those has a decision cost. Mm-hmm. There's a cool study, not on bodybuilders, but in just general pop dieters, where they looked at the effect of a calorie deficit and the effect of counting calories, and then them independently. So they had folks dieting, but they didn't have them track calories. They just provided them food that would result in a deficit. Mm-hmm. They had folks dieting and tracking their calories while being provided it. So they had to keep track of it and stop and log their food and weigh things and do all the things we talk about. Then they had folks who were provided calories and didn't track it, and it was maintenance. Then they had folks who were provided calories at maintenance, but they had to track it. And there was higher subjective stress scores from tracking, and there was higher cortisol levels from being in a deficit. So there is independent stress from dieting and from tracking it. So the more variables you manage, it's not just optimize everything. Doesn't happen in a vacuum.
Yeah.
The more things you try to optimize, the more you have to pay attention to, make decisions about, monitor, think about, keep in your RAM. You know, your RAM. You're kind of always the monkey on your shoulders that's always there that you try to forget. So I think there's something to be said for these more simple bodybuilding menu style diets that A, control for some of those variables, but B, the menu we all had back in the day, the decision was made.
Yeah.
I'm having the sweet potato and broccoli. That's what it is.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
I think one thing those menus did well is there was always a few meals that maybe you looked forward to a little bit more, you know, but there was never really a meal that made you go crazy.
Yes.
And I mean, you're in a caloric deficit, so just by default, you're not going to be eating enough. You're never really going to be quenched via this part of your day. You're eating. I think it's important for a contest prepper, especially newer ones, to realize that early so that they don't get, there's going to be limited joy that you can get from your eating at all times. I think you've done a few of these, and it gets to the point where you're like, you know, I'm pretty screwed up right now, and yeah, food helps me feel better, but what's really going to help me feel better is going to be after the show and lots of food and lots of time. Yeah. So, like, is having a meal be, or seeing food as like your daily savior, is something that can get you in a lot of trouble, and it just ends up, that part ends up being very like unfulfilling, and that becomes a stress. So there is something to making sure that, okay, these are foods that I like. I don't like tilapia, but I got this other protein source that I can kind of eat a bit more consistently, and making that part of your rotation. Yeah, look forward to your meals, but by no means make them so tasty that
it's the highlight of your week.
And then it makes you feel
or
not
thinking
always
that
satisfied.
it can even do it. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I think they're realizing that this is as good as it's going to get.
Yes.
You know, it's a refeed day. I have not changed my meals around. I've gotten to have, instead of a cup of blueberries, I've had 2 cups of blueberries. Yeah. I had a lot of carrots instead of some. I had my same omelet. I had my tilapia, and then I also got to have rice and potatoes at 2 of my meals. Mm-hmm. And I still don't feel great, but I feel better than the other day. Yeah. But that's as good as it's going to get, unless I'm on a refeed every day plus a little bit for 2 months. And to back up kind of our observations of experienced versus inexperienced competitors, there's research that shows this too. So there's acceptance therapy. And that is something that is an adjunct to obesity treatment. So, and it's actually shown some pretty effective outcomes for long-term adherence, and adherence in the short term, and then people are actually able to hang with it. And basically, it's saying it's a different message from what we get, because I think in the general blogosphere of dieting, you hear the whole, here's this diet will make it so dieting happens without you feeling like you're dieting. Mm-hmm. That's really the sales pitch of all of them. It's one weird trick, this thing, you won't feel like you're dieting, this is the food, this is the magic pill, etc. And what the person expects is, this is going to be different than the last diet. I'll lose weight and it won't be hard. And that is only true for a certain extent of time, for a certain period, to a point for everyone, right? You can do a bodybuilding prep really, really well with the flexible dieting principles, using these menus and having a more qualitative approach. I'll use my own prep as an example. It was straight easy for 3 months. And I got in really good shape, not nearly professional.
Where you're at now.
Right, correct.
Yeah.
But solid, like 1981 bodybuilding shape. And I had to push kind of hard for my shape I had in April. But man, if you want to get into the kind of shape that you have to be at the highest level in 2019 in competitive bodybuilding, there's an unavoidable suck. Likewise, if you have 150 pounds to lose and change your life and sustain it, the amount of behavior change, I would say it's probably worse, if not equivalent, to getting shredded. yeah, I'm objectively leaner, but I have this whole different lifestyle background. I didn't come from an obese family. I had nutritional education. I wasn't brought up with foods that got me used to eating things that are really obesogenic, that make you want to eat more. So if you're someone who's 300 pounds, 350 pounds, there's research showing that simply getting counseling to understand that there will be an obligatory level of discomfort, and then counseling to accept that, improves adherence and improves outcomes. And that's the same thing that I can't tell you, I can tell how many times I've had clients who I know at a certain point I realize, they don't get it. They'll ask me, so, hey, how do I manage my hunger, Eric? And I tell them, well, you don't.
Yeah.
You're going to be hungry. We've reached that stage in prep, and normally this ends up being either a Skype call or an in-depth video, because I really want them to get it. This isn't just a quick answer via email. I go, hey, here's how it's going to be from here on out, man. You're going to have some days where you're surprised that you're not hungry. But those are going to be the odd days.
Yeah, far and few between.
Most days, and this is, I'll speak from my experience, I finish my dinner, which is often my biggest meal, and it's like 300 grams of egg whites, about 100 grams of chopped up mixed veggies, a little bit of low-fat cheese, and an egg. And then on a refeed day, I get to have that on toast or something like that. Mm-hmm. On a non-refeed day, I don't, and I have soup or like a side vegetable. In addition to my vegetables, my omelet. I finish it, and what's the first thing I think when I finish it? I would like to have that again.
Yeah.
I would like to repeat dinner immediately.
Yeah.
And instead, what do? Well, maybe I have my diet soda.
Yeah.
Or nothing, and I just accept it, because that's the way it is.
Yeah.
But that isn't the way the first 2 months of prep are. You actually feel maybe not satiated, but you're not hungry post-meal. Mm-hmm. But you get to a certain point, and you finish a meal, and the only thing you can think of is, I would love to have that again, or dessert, or something else, you know? And I think that kind of can come as a shock to competitors, but there is some, I would say, maybe not relief. I would say at least, maybe not comfort, but at least relief, knowing that that's normal. You're okay. Your macros are going to start again tomorrow, and that there's no harm. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
And if you can accept that, then all of a sudden you're in a much better place. You're like, I'm going to be a hungry person.
And taking that one step further beyond where you're going, and I know that you've experienced this before, is that they accept that, and then they start striving for that, and that will become a problem too.
Yeah.
I mean, how many times do we hear folks say, I understand this now I need to be hungry, and I need to force more hunger. I need to make sure that I'm maybe even coming in a little low on my macros, and things like that. And that sometimes is more scary than trying to get somebody to accept that they need to be hungry, is then when they start actually almost becoming masochistic in a way. It's like they need to be hungry, because if they're not hungry, they're not progressing. Man. They're not getting leaner. They're not getting toward that competition level. And so a lot of times when I do have that talk, it's and sometimes I probably spend too much time doing this, but it's kind of like the foreshadowing. It's like, okay, now that you understand this, we got to start thinking, 4 or 5 steps down the road, 4 or 5 shots down the road, 3 or 4 plays down the road. This is what I've experienced before with people, and myself included. We need to avoid that behavior, and I think sometimes, I don't know, I guess it's just the overachiever in us maybe.
Yeah, this might be a tough one for people who haven't competed before.
Yeah, I think the first one was for like an inexperienced competitor. They're like, holy crap, this sucks. It's not like on Instagram. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Whereas I think sometimes this person is the person who's done a few.
Well, they've done like one season. Or they've only done bro seasons.
Exactly. And they come to us and they're like, I'm waiting. My first season where I counted calories, I was kind of amazed. I'm like,
yeah,
this doesn't suck nearly as much. Mm-hmm. And I was looking better, but there was still some suspicion behind that.
Yeah. So for the listeners who are like, what exactly are you talking about? I don't get it. So if you've never competed in bodybuilding, there's kind of the first prep experience is always overdoing it, not knowing what you're getting into, probably having a binge either during the show or a massive weight gain after, and just kind of the shock to the system of, oh my God, I didn't think it would be this hard. Mm-hmm. I didn't know how to do it, and all the stuff we just talked about, and the coaching that we were talking about would have been nice to have had. The second, I won't put it this way, because sometimes this can be a period. The first time you do a prep, quote unquote, right, and you are using elements of flexible dieting, you have a healthy relationship with food.
You're integrating diet breaks.
Yes, diet breaks, refeeds, you diet longer, and you get to a point where maybe you don't make progress and you're not hungry, and you think, oh shit, something is wrong because I don't feel bad.
Yeah.
And this can be a problematic mindset. I have watched competitors who are steadily losing weight, eating a high amount of calories, maintaining fullness, performing well, and you're thinking, oh man, they're crushing it. Cut calories because they're performing well, losing weight, and improving because they think something is wrong. Bodybuilding is supposed to be incredibly hard. And I have come to associate the suck with progress. And you'll even hear competitors say it, like, the leanest man on stage or the leanest competitor on stage feels the worst. And I think that probably was true more often than not into the 90s if you look at the IFBB pros and maybe even today. But like, for example, I feel at least 3 times as good today than I did 6 weeks ago, even though I was 6 weeks out 6 weeks ago. I'm competing in 2 days because I've been walking my food up and I got in shape 6 weeks ago. And that's not the norm. Most people it gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse and worse, and then they carb load on Friday and that's the only day they feel good. And then they cut water and they feel worse. So everything is all built around the better I look, the worse I feel. And that mentality can really be the beginning of eating disorders that I've seen. Yeah,
and that's usually what scares us. Well, and just imagine how I don't want to use the word optimal, but imagine if you were trying for that feeling way back, before it needed to happen.
Yeah.
It's going to have to happen at some point.
There's going to be a digging phase.
It's a rare thing that someone does not have the suck in their prep. But just imagine being an experienced competitor, if you were striving for that out from your show. You could have ruined your whole prep, and
100%.
And had you not had the knowledge about eating disorders and things like that, it contributed to an eating disorder post your show, and so that's something that I felt like had to be brought up, is we have to kind of just flip that coin over and say, okay, now that we understand that we have to embrace that suck, here's the 3-4 shots down the road.
Yeah, the double-edged sword of being a bodybuilder is that simply just by the act of going through this process, it means you're an A-type, obsessive, incredibly hardworking, prone to do more than not enough person. So once you flip the switch and realize that, I just accept that hunger is a part of this, then you go, well, I'm going to overachieve on acceptance. I'm going to seek it out to be hungry. Yeah. And that means success. And that's a double-edged sword. Like, once it's a good place to be, because that means you're hungry again in the right way. You're a shark in the water. You're going for it. You're embracing prep. You get hungry and you think, "Fuck yeah, I'm doing my thing." Yeah. And that's a good place to be. That's that competitive drive applied to bodybuilding, food. But the problem is you take practice home with you. Food is your practice as an athlete who's a bodybuilder, and like you said, Brad, you just have to really make sure that gets contained and put in context. And if you do everything right, and you do start eating up and you get ready early, it will get easier. You will start to run downhill into your shows. And that's the way it should feel. There should be some point when you're 2 to 8 weeks out from the first show that you're going to do where you're shredded, where it was the hardest it'll ever be. Until maybe the reverse diet or recovery diet, which is harder in a different way. That's more about the mental switch that you flip over, but not the actual feeling of lethargy or the hunger or the inability to perform or the pep talks you have to give yourself to just pick the dumbbells up, let alone press them or get under a squat bar. That part, it should be maybe a 1 or 2 time deal of digging.
Yeah, and so many times we have seasoned, veteran athletes that come to us simply because they could easily coach themselves, but they don't want to have that worry, that stress of when to when is the right time to have it suck. They don't want to think about that.
Yeah.
They know they're ready for it, but they don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
And it's, I don't know, for those athletes, it's kind of almost a luxury in a way, I guess. It's like, okay, you know what, a car is fine, but because it's a luxury, I'm going to buy a Camaro or a Vet or whatever. I can do this prep on my own. I've done it before, and I just don't want to think about it.
Yeah.
I want to hire somebody to do that thinking for me, and I don't know. I think that's a very trustworthy thing. But that's,
for me, it's a pain saver.
Yeah.
So I would say there's been maybe 3 or 4 distinct times I can think I would have done something different than Berto, either out of fear or because I have my blinders on. I think the consequences to each one of them wouldn't have been very high. Mm-hmm. The qualitatively big picture, the prep would probably still be the same. I might have been, let's say, a little flatter at my first show, and probably the one coming up on the 6th. Or maybe I would have learned from it in Hawaii and then not done it. Mm-hmm. However, so even when I make the right game call, when it's that means that basically I have all these voices in my head. We all do. That's the reality of being a human. Is you have your doubts have a voice, your critic has a voice, your adult has a voice, your little kid who hasn't gotten to eat candy in 6 months has a voice. You've got all these voices inside you, and the eventual decision is what comes out of our mouth or what we actually decide to do. And the deeper you get into prep and the higher the stakes and the more you care, and whether it's a pro card or whether it's end of season or whether you got to travel or all this stuff, the voice of anxiety gets louder. Now, if you're an experienced competitor, you can calm that. You can swage yourself. You can be the inner coach, and you can be louder. But that's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Just as much work as is working with someone who's not you. They're going to send you 15 stressed out emails, and you got to respond to each one, and then they're okay.
Yeah.
That's happening internally with me. Berto tells me, I want to go another day at 2,800. He hears me say, man, that's crazy. I get it, makes sense, and I see what you're seeing. I'm a little spilled, but you're right. We have X, Y, and Z time. If I did that on my own, that would be a back and forth that would take me an hour, and it'd be a lot of stress.
Yeah.
And I would probably make the right call, but at the cost of all that stress.
Yeah.
And sometimes I wouldn't make the right call.
Well, and sometimes just you get that analysis, that paralysis by analysis.
Yes.
You might know the right call, but then you hem and haw about it for 4 or 5 hours, which is 4 or 5 hours, especially if it's in terms of a competition prep.
Yeah.
You got to show in 2 days. And sometimes that timing is just as important.
Knowing me, what I would do is I'd make an unnecessary compromise. I know I should be doing 2,800, but I'm nervous about it, and I'm convincing myself I'm spilled a little bit, and I go, well, you know what, we'll play it safe and go 24. Then I get on stage and I'm just a little flat. It's not a huge sacrifice that I made, but someone being that extra voice to tip me over the edge and go, no, you're fine, here's X, Y, and Z. And I go, yeah, that did enter my equation, but then I had this crying child in my head as well. So I think that's a big part of it, is that the competitor can coach themselves, but at what emotional cost?
Yeah.
What's going on, 3DMJers in Asia or those who want an excuse to take a vacation? I'm really excited to announce that Alberto Nunez and I will be presenting at the Hong Kong tour on the 14th and 15th of September, just coming up in a few weeks now as we're near the middle of August. We'll be talking contest prep, bodybuilding in the off season. We'll have 2 days where we'll be doing both lecture and hands-on, so you can train with us. We can teach you the ropes of how to train for bodybuilding and also talk through all the theory to optimize your performance. Then the following weekend, we'll be in Singapore as a part of the Physique Roundtable. This is the best bodybuilding event that's going to happen this year. Cliff Wilson will be there, Lauren Conlon, Ryan Doris, in addition to Alberto Nunez and myself. And that's a lot of knowledge, a lot of experience, a lot of pros, and a lot of coaches all in the same room. So make sure you attend one of these events if you haven't been to a good bodybuilding conference. This will really blow your mind. Go to my Instagram at Helms3DMJ and check out my bio link, and the first top 2 links can get you tickets to either one of these. I'm really looking forward to seeing you there.
You know what I think people also need, coaches, is I think almost everyone needs like a guide that they trust, like through their life, like whether it be a significant other, a spouse, or a really good friend.
Yes.
Just someone to because this can take over your life, because it doesn't end with the training session. It's not like every other sport. You have a really good practice. That's it. You can go have your Mickey D's and, it's TV shows all night and that's it. No, it's as a way, if you're doing it right, I feel, to leak into everything else, and especially when you're lean enough. So I do think it's important to have people who you trust enough to be like, all right, I'm going to give you the, to a certain extent, like the rights to...
Keys to the car.
Yeah, here you go. It's like you can amend some of my decisions, my behavior, things like that. I think that goes a really long way. And I've had preps where at the end it's like, oh man, I have all these people that I have to apologize to and catch up with because I did a poor job in keeping up with them. And it's nice to have someone who knows you.
Yes.
And can be fair, and also because when you're doing anything, it's important. Other things, it's going to come at the cost of other things. Like, let's be real, like any other sport, right?
Yeah.
You're a week out from the Super Bowl, you're not going to be partying with your friends, things like that, right? So you need someone who knows you really well, who you trust, to kind of help guide you and make sure that you stay on track. Surely there's going to be some changes, and you're not going to be you 100%, but we want to be reasonable when it comes to this and not have anything on that side that's that we're going to regret later on. I think that's super important.
So what Berto was talking around is I sat down with him and B yesterday, and I said, basically, I wanted to check in with how much of a dick am I being compared to me normally, compared to me in past preps, compared to me in April, because one thing I could be objective about was that I knew that I could not be objective about myself, because exactly, again, we're talking about food behaviors that are non-quantitative, that aren't covered in, say, explicit directions in the pyramids, or that might be in your spreadsheet. And you're damn sure all the stuff we're talking about isn't happening in a vacuum. It's not like you're just drinking more diet soda. Mm-hmm. What's probably happening is you're not going out to eat with anybody anymore, or any circumstance. You're prepping your food in isolation. You're snapping at people, like when you're prepping food and someone tries to talk to you, like, hey, you're distracting me. Mm-hmm. Like you're spending more time tracking your macros. You're spending time in the grocery store browsing next week's menu, or going to the diet aisle to figure out, oh, do they have a new Halo Top flavor? Or you're trying to figure out, you got nervous because your weigh-ins were weird, so you spent an hour reading blog posts about whether or not Walden Farms actually doesn't have calories in it. All that shit is going to take a toll on the people around you. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what doesn't get seen by a coach. And then the people who have had that toll taken on them are going to treat you differently, as they should, or you're going to get into conflicts, and then that has an effect on your body and your prep and your experiences and your relationships. So there's a lot of, none of this stuff happens in a vacuum. Mm-hmm. The simple fact of someone eating more Walden Farms and doubling their food prep time, that's not all that's happening. That the mentality that goes into that is the same mentality that goes into a poor relationship with your significant other, degraded work performance, more obsessive tendencies, doing things like, getting up and walking around the house to keep your steps up, etc. All the weird stuff that we see happens in concert with that. So what Berto's saying is that a coach is someone who can give you the feedback so hey, here's what you're doing that's pretty funky, it's weird, it's understandable, but maybe you need to pretend to be normal a little more. Mm-hmm. Because to be honest, that's what it is. There's a certain point where you have a memory of what it's like to be a normal version of yourself. And for us as coaches, we know what a normal person does normally, mm-hmm. and you have to pretend,
Yeah.
Like, I really like what you said, Brad, and when we did the recovery diet video, you always say for the Sunday after the show, make your best impression of a normal human eating 3 square meals.
Meals a day, yeah.
Yeah, not just eat 3 square meals, because we know you don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Like 3 square meals is, all right, so I throw up once? Like, I'm confused, Like, when do I know when to stop? Like, well, what do you think someone would do who had not just starved themselves? Would they have 2 steaks or 1? Oh, I see what you're saying,
Yeah.
You got to fake it.
Yeah. And that was something that you really enlightened me, Berto, when you said, I think it was for it might have been what year did you win the show in Idaho?
14.
Okay, so it was your 14 prep. You made it like your prep motto to not have anybody realize you were prepping.
Yeah.
Oh, that was 2011. Yeah. No, because I worked with children, so I had a real job.
Yeah, that was my motto in 2011 too.
Yeah.
Yeah, and children, well, first of all, it's not their fault. And then secondly, they don't stop. Mm-hmm. So I remember my biggest meal, instead of training, my biggest meal came pre-work.
Yes.
So it was 150 grams of carbohydrates so that I could play kickball and and monitor children as they walked in lines safely. But yeah, I mean, I would have much rather not have it that way, but I knew that the school year was going to come to an end before it got really, really hard. So I'm like, okay, up until this point, I can do this because that means that much to me, and it's not going to negatively really impact my prep. But yeah, I was faking it. I would have much rather had those carbs, either for dinner or pre-training.
Yeah, I just remember thinking that was such a novel idea at the time. It was like, oh, that's a great idea. Just fake it. Make everybody just think that everything is just peachy keen and you're not even prepping.
Yep.
You know, and it was akin to when I'm on stage and I'm just smiling and I just efficiently get in the first one in the pose. You know, you're burning on the inside, but you're just faking it. You know. Yeah. And I thought, now that is a professional approach. And I really like that.
Yeah, same. I think that's great advice. Is like, so I'll parallel to myself. 07, you're just my first season. I was just falling downstairs trying to figure out what you're supposed to do, what it's like. Asking people to adapt to you, trying to adapt to the situation, being weird, and it's a mess. Having an ultimatum with your wife afterwards going, you can't do it like this. Okay. Next season, you get some good information, you hire a coach, you do the best version of an evidence-based prep and doing it right and intelligently, psychologically and physiologically. But the problem is then it allows you to push harder, then you get to a place you've never been before and the wheels fall off, but at least you look better, right? Third season for me, 2011, that was my goal, is I want people to only know that I'm dieting because I start to look like an AIDS victim, you know? Yeah. You can see it in my face, right? But my goal is to not have anyone else have to change their behavior because of me or to feel affected by it. Mm-hmm. And then for the rest of your competitive career, it's getting better at that because you won't be perfect. And you'll find out after the season's over, actually, no, you were kind of a dick. And you're like, damn it, I thought I was good, you know? So that's kind of the pattern and the way it goes. And I think we could probably transition now to how we help our athletes achieve that. We've talked about all the behaviors that come out of it and all these non-quantitative things, but I'll use an example.
Well, one more counter before we
go. Yeah.
Because then it gets to the point where I've seen it happen because I've done it almost, where you're like, okay, so I don't totally suck anymore because I'm aware and I'm trying, but there is a point where it's like, okay, you need to like be in bed early. Friday nights, we might, and I think if you do a really good job with the other stuff, your people will kind of let you get away with it, which within reason. Yeah. You still should go to work. You should not drop out of your classes.
Yeah. But you got to be a responsible version of you.
Right.
Yeah.
But there was a point, my last prep, where I was going out with my buddies almost every weekend, and then I was about 4 or 5 weeks out. And I'm like, okay, like this means that much to me. Yeah. It's like if I was studying for a big exam or something.
Exactly. Yeah, like Francisco today. Hey, you gonna grab food with us? No, I gotta study. Like, yeah, he's trying to get his like registered nurse thing. Yeah.
And that's admirable, and they understand that, and it's
didn't even blink.
Open. You're not just sucking for no reason, right?
Yeah.
So there's I guess it goes both ways, and all of these things so far that we've covered. It's like it's just going to take a minute, but I think if you know what you're aiming for, you can be far. It took us a few preps to figure this out.
Yes.
So for a lot of these people, maybe not your first prep, but you'll see like, oh, I know what you're talking about. Second prep, you'll be able to correct it, and this stuff will be very helpful. But it takes a few, man.
Yeah. It's just like you were talking about with, before the Super Bowl. 2 weeks before the Super Bowl, you're deep in practice. You're practicing like every freaking day. But you're sure not like that in February, March when the season's over.
No.
Now you need to kind of hold off on all that suffering on your family, your loved ones, your friends, etc. until basically it's expected.
Although funny story, Brad, you're gonna like this. Deion Sanders party the night before the Super Bowl.
I do remember that. I guess the Chargers.
His answer was like, we're gonna win the game.
Yeah, baby. We're gonna whoop them fools.
Dion for you.
Yeah. So that's what you need to strive for is Friday night you know you're going to whip them fools, so we can just go out and party all night.
Well, let's put it this way. We have eaten out every day this week at least once.
Yeah, true. That's our way of partying all night.
Yeah. So that's how exciting bodybuilders are. Is we might go to Jack's Urban Eats.
Yeah.
And I might eyeball my nutrition.
Yeah.
I might assume that the calories on the menu are pretty close to accurate.
Yeah. But before we get into your point, that's something I want to kind of expand on is we're taking a lot of general population athletes now and folks that are far, far away from their competition.
Yeah.
And
or never will do one.
Yeah. But either way, my goal for a lot of those folks is basically the exact opposite of how we have traditionally coached people. It's like, okay, you know what? Let's figure out a way to do this that we don't have to quantify and track every single thing.
Absolutely.
Let's figure out ways that, okay, you can kind of, by your gut, I'm this full, I've probably eaten 1,000 calories at this meal,
Yep.
And sometimes it takes a little bit of practice to get there, but a lot of times, I guess more so for my competition off-season prep athletes that are 8 months a year, 2 years from the show. It's like let's figure out how not to do that, because there's going to be a time when that has to happen, and it's kind of like we do one or the other. Either A, if we do quantify our food, and you're just a stud at execution, let's just not even weigh ourselves.
Yeah.
We don't got to do that. Your weight's not going anywhere. Or, you know what, if you want to weigh yourself every day, that's fine. But let's not track food.
Yeah.
Let's just go by what the tummy says, And if you were really full yesterday, you know what, let's walk away from the food, maybe just not so stuffed today. Let's just be okay with where we're at.
Right. Be not hungry.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And that's kind of one thing I just wanted to touch on is that.
Oh, we can more than touch on it, baby. So I like where you're going.
Well, and it's. I think this occurred to me after I think it was my 2011 season when we all did the Pro International. It had to be a good 8 months after I stepped off stage at the Natural Olympia. And I was still fasting in the morning, drinking coffee and water for as long as possible so that I could basically take my calories and cram it into this much of the day instead of this much of the day.
You were 175, weren't you?
Oh, yeah. I was still pretty friggin' lean.
You were like 10 pounds over stage weight, carb loaded, basically.
Yeah. So I wanted to figure out how to take the 2,000 calories that I needed to eat and fit it between 1 p.m. and midnight as opposed to 7 a.m. and midnight, And I was like, I don't even know what it means now to have a normal breakfast.
Yeah.
And it was kind of one of those experiences was like, I shouldn't probably be this way now. And I don't want my athletes who, are years from their competition or they're years removed from their competition. I don't want them to live like this.
You had a light bulb moment like this isn't what sustainability or health looks like.
Exactly. And obviously it wasn't.
Yeah.
That's not something that I'm going to be able to continue doing because pretty soon it's going to start to affect my performance in the gym.
Yep.
How can I have a 10 a.m. session if I've had nothing to eat since last night at 6 p.m. when I crammed in my last 1,000 calories or whatever, So yeah, that's kind of another thing to kind of touch on is we want to make sure that these, digging phases, these habits that we kind of have to go through in their appropriate times getting into prep, they need to happen, but they need to happen at the right times. And when you're in your off season, that's you want to focus less on that and focus more on the bodybuilding, the lifting, the performance, and exactly, yeah.
No, that's so well said. That it requires restraint to get into the kind of shape you need to be on stage, but restraint is not something you should be living with as a bodybuilder. Mm-hmm. And same thing with Genpop. Like it may require some restraint to get into the shape we need to be, but the difference between a bodybuilder is the shape they get into, we do not want to maintain. Mm-hmm. The shape a Genpop person wants to get into, we do want to maintain. So that means that whatever strategies we use to get a Genpop person into quote unquote shape, which just means a healthy body weight, mm-hmm. and healthy physical profile, we want to have it be the closest we can get to something that's going to look like their new life. So I'm the exact same way as you. If I have to pull out the MyFitnessPal card, if I have to pull out the Weigh Your Food card, or I have to pull out the weighing in 7 days a week average card, or if I have to pull out the intermittent fasting card, or all of these things that can get us there, I immediately have the conversation with them and with myself of this is a temporary solution. I'm putting a Band-Aid on this, but it's not going to heal. I can't leave this Band-Aid on. And the problem with most people, and the reason why they lose the same 30 pounds every time they diet, is because that's not the way they're taught. They're taught that this diet will be the solution. What do you do afterwards? What do you mean?
Yeah.
You know? Yeah. So when I play the counting calorie card with Genpop person, it's going, hey, we're going to learn something from this. You're going to figure out, oh, I get it. I'm actually eating way more than I thought. We're going to lose some body fat. We're going to walk our food back up. And then we're going to learn not to count calories. We're going to go from macros to protein and calories to body weight and protein to just eating and paying attention to satiety, like you said. And then if we slip up again, then we'll try a different Band-Aid that might fit that wound better. But each time the Band-Aid's got to come off. And I think that is a huge missing piece that most kind of macro-focused coaches don't have when they're dealing with people who have a transformation goal or a bodybuilding goal or a make a weight class goal, and then they do Genpop coaching, is they're great at getting people from point A to point B, and then the Uber drives away, the person turns around and goes, now what? Oh.
Yeah.
And they're screwed.
Yeah. Or at least, if nothing else, help them to figure out to make lifestyle changes that are sustainable.
Yeah.
You know, for some folks, it's just not. I don't know. It's better for a person to maybe have less frequent bigger meals than more frequent smaller meals. You know, and sometimes sometimes your Band-Aid will become a solution.
Yeah.
It'll be kind of one of those things where, okay, let's try this.
If they were lacking a certain skill or awareness beforehand.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then sometimes what ends up happening is it's like, oh, well, you know what? This is much more livable than what I was doing before. You know? And so there's always that outside of the box type of thinking that you have to kind of have that. I don't know. It kind of comes from just experiencing multiple ways of accomplishing the same goal.
Yeah.
With different tools, different lifestyle, different people, different...
Big one, for example, that doesn't change your calories or your macros is manipulating energy density. Something I talk about a lot, like I want you to eat, here's your macros, sure, great, but every day I want you to get in at least 4 pieces of fruit and 4 servings of vegetables. And that alone makes people like, wow, I had broccoli, green beans, asparagus, and a salad with dressing on the side today, and I had 2 apples, and I had a cup of blueberries and a cup of strawberries. I couldn't eat the amount I normally would.
Yeah.
And it was fine. I enjoy these foods. They're good. But I didn't want dessert.
Yeah.
And dessert's 1,000 calories. And that means, oh shit, I'm dieting. I'm not even trying.
Yeah. And then the unattended good consequence of that is like, I've had people that I do that with, and they're like, you know what? My grocery bill is actually less.
Yep.
I'm spending less money on food now that I'm buying fruit and fresh vegetables that, you know, a bag of carrots is what, $2.26?
And their BP probably went down by 20 points.
Exactly. Yeah. As opposed to the dessert thing that they were making was costing them $10, you know?
Saving money, probably saving long-term health.
Yeah.
They don't even realize.
And that's another great example of kind of that what at first was a Band-Aid ended up being the solution. It ended up healing the cut.
Yep. So they at first they're like, oh wow, this is actually quite a lifestyle change. Even though I'm still hitting, let's say, 175 protein, 200 carbs, 60 fat, and right now we've got this macro tracking thing going, but oof. And it's hard to eat 4 apples a day or what have you. But then once they get adapted to that and they find that hitting their macros is easy, and in fact they can come under them if they wanted, that becomes just such a great tool for them to move forward. And it's like, basically, if you're not dieting for a show, if you're not dieting to get to a point where you're going to be unsustainably lean, then you have to think about what behaviors can I learn, especially on like my refeed days or my high days, my off days, that are still structured to some extent, that I can take into my life. You know, maybe is it I go out to eat breakfast, and that's something that we do with my significant other, so we like to go out to eat thing. But instead of getting, you know, pancakes and an omelet like I normally do, which is a normal breakfast, you know, but it's 2,000 calories, I get sauteed spinach mushrooms, 2 poached eggs, sourdough toast, and it's actually feels like I'm eating more food, but it's half the calories or less. And you know, a big black coffee with some Splenda that I get before the rest. Like that's the kind of thing. It's an enjoyable social thing you do with your significant other. It's good food. Someone else is cooking for you. You know, you're having a nice Sunday morning walk to go to the place to eat. Like it's things that people objectively anywhere in the world look at and go, that sounds nice, but you've made some adjustments to your lifestyle, and if you can maintain that, all of a sudden you put yourself into a category where you're going to maintain a healthier body weight.
Yeah, you get to kind of have your cake and eat it too.
Or at least your sauteed mushrooms.
Wow, that's so different from preppers to people who are not prepping.
Yeah, I mean, it's a huge stark contrast. Like a prepper, you get to a point where you must exhibit rigid rules or specific targets or some type of enforced restraint to get to a point where you are going to be like, I'm going to do this, then I need to get the hell out of Dodge.
Yes.
You know? Like right now, I am 6 foot, and I had a low weigh-in of 174 pounds. Like that, and I'm a bodybuilder. I'm not just, you know, an endurance athlete. I think, sure, 185, that's a good place to be. How quickly can I get to 185? And I'll tell you, folks, that's going to be about 4 weeks after my first show.
2 weeks. 2 weeks would be good.
You think 2 weeks you want to get? Well,
That'd be great.
Well, there's going to be some bloat. But if you think about it, that's me gaining 2.5 pounds a week.
Yeah.
Right? That's a huge surplus.
Yeah. Yeah, 3,500 calories is a pound. That's 7,000, 8,000
surplus a day.
That's me eating 1,000 calories more than I currently need to maintain weight
that
every day.
dessert that person didn't have because of the fruits and
Correct.
veggies you'll have before them.
And the good news is you've reversed me into this show, so I can apparently maintain weight on 2,500 calories, which means I'm going to be some dude eating 4,000 calories a day.
You're not splitting that
for a
dessert
month.
with Barb. You're not splitting that dessert.
No, I'd be like, you need to get your own.
You get your whole Pazuki.
I'm trying to get healthy, all right? I'm trying to get, do you see these lines in my butt? What is that?
Yeah.
I'm trying to just have quad separation,
I want to
okay?
grow in my seat as we're having this meal.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not trying to have my legs fall asleep on the toilet because I've got my sit bone jamming into my freaking piriformis, all right? Yeah. So I think that then shifts to some of the things that I do or we do as coaches that we may have not done before. I think one example that I'm just thinking of right now is I had basically 2 digs this prep. I had the dig right before the Hawaii show where Berto was like, we can get you legally shredded in this last little bit. I want you to run 10 days on low days. I was averaging around 1,400 calories. That's hardcore, right? Not as hardcore as we would get later. But, and I went, can do. However, on Friday I have a meeting. Can I have a day at 1,900? And I will still get the other 5 days, but they need to be after that. And he was like, yeah, dude, I don't want you biting your students' heads off. And I think there would have been a time where as a coach, I would have been about 2 minds of that. I'm like, I want 10 low days. And then my brain is going, but we're 3D Muscle Journey. I can't tell this person to feel like shit. I would probably let them do it and then judge them in my head. Like if you were hardcore, you would still do it and you'd handle your students well.
And you'd find out a way to make it happen, yeah.
But no, Berto's response was, oh yeah, that's a good idea. Have an extra 500 calories, actually have it earlier in the day so you're good to go for your meetings,
Yeah.
And that's something I actually do purposefully now with my clients. Like we go into a digging phase and I don't just go, hey, we're going to dig, here's your calories. I go, here we go, we're going to dig. So what's your life look like right now? Like, how do we make sure that this doesn't blow anything else up? How do we not, alienate your children or something like that?
Yeah.
And are there ways, do we want to get this digging phase in just on your off days from work or do we want to do additional cardio? Or like, what does this look like for you so that we can dig without digging a hole in through a relationship or your job? And that's not something I used to do. I used to just be like, yeah, these are the 4 weeks we're going to cut. Figure it out, homie.
And I think it's still not done enough. There's a lot of people who understand, I think, the basics of nutrition and how to induce proper fat loss. Like that's pretty well understood, way more than 10 years ago.
The numbers game, they understand.
But all these little things, like all these, I think some of these just come with, I think we're all quite a bit over 30 now.
Yeah.
So that helps. So we understand how this life thing goes.
We've adulted a bit.
Yeah, yeah, and that's
unfortunately, I will say, and I don't mean to interrupt, is that sometimes I've had an experienced competitor who I've asked to dig, given no guidance. They're over 30. They have kids. They have a second job. And they came back and I said, hey, and they tell me like, oh, you'll appreciate this, thinking I assumed they would do this.
I've had that happen.
Here's what I did to make this manager on my work. And I'm sitting there going, oh yeah, that's a great job, Tom. But in my head, I'm going, oh man, if you were not a veteran competitor, I would have just screwed up your life. You know, like this is a variable maybe I should be paying attention to.
Sure, yeah.
You know, like I forgot you were a construction worker and I just asked you to do X, Y, Z. Or I forgot you're a social worker on Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and I gave you 7 days in a row and you lost your refeeds and you only have the weekend. And you found a way around that. Maybe I should be considering that.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Like, oh man, I've had a few guys, they do law enforcement.
Yeah.
And in some pretty risque places. So it's like, okay, we need to take that into consideration.
I almost got you killed.
And you have some backup Gatorade in your car just in case, you know?
Yep. So those who don't know, because Jeff's not on this podcast, he enlisted me 8 weeks out from this show to basically say, hey, I want you to be my emotional support, moral support, and coach. And I have made it like Berto did with me. I've made some calls that went contrary to what he probably would have done on his own. And I let him dig when he feels like he can dig. But one thing I have done with Jeff multiple times, and he often doesn't even play the card, is I give him you're a dad, you're a coach, you've got a daughter who's going to have a quince, you've got a lot of shit going on, we got a 10-year coming up. Here's your 300-calorie card. Keep it in your back pocket. It's not a refeed. We're still going to have low days, but basically you can play this at any time. It's your trump card. You can come in and get out of jail. Like, I feel like death. I had a random thing going on with Ethan. Man, I had to, like, someone stole the car, like, whatever. Like, This is your life card. Instead of leaving you without options and feeling like you've got to please coach and you have a binge or just you're frustrated or you take it out on your family, that's 75 grams of carbohydrate if you want it. You can have as many rice cakes as you need to handle your day, you know? And he's only had to play the card, I think, once out of the 8 weeks of me giving it to him. But I think knowing that you have that is really important, especially for a less experienced competitor.
Yeah, and that's one thing, especially with my I guess I'll call them off-season instead of Genpop, as my off-season clients. I want to hear in their check-ins what it is they do. I need to get to know this person.
Right. What's their life look like?
Exactly. Because so many times I'll have 3 or 4 people, new people, come onto my roster, and I'll get them mixed up. I'll think, oh, okay, this was the person. Oh no, that's this other person, or they have a similar name or whatever. But yeah, sometimes I almost wish that if I was, king of the world or whatever, that my competition prep athletes would work with me for a good 3, 4, 5 months so that I can get to know them as a person, get to know their job. Do they have kids? What is it that they do in their spare time? Just for that reason right there.
Yeah.
Because,
how do they respond when things get hard? Because your stress tolerance when you're prepping goes down.
How do they reveal their stress? And
what exit and backup strategies do I need to have in place? Not just because it's easy to set up a plan that'll get someone from point A to point B. It's difficult to set up an individualized plan that will help someone get someone to point A to point B, knowing that there's going to be 3 speed bumps.
Yeah.
Because the speed bumps are never the problem. It's the reaction to them.
the speed bumps. Yeah.
It's a week of binging or complete depression. I didn't even email my coach. I haven't trained in a week, and I ate it at normal. Like, these are all things that have happened. Or I got so angry or whatever that I trained and then hurt myself. I've had each of those are real examples where if perhaps I knew how they handled stress, like you were saying, or I knew what stresses were coming, or if they knew that I would be okay with that 300-calorie card on the 5th low day, and then when they had this tiny bit of extra peanut butter that became the jar, and then that became the I can't tell coach, and that became a skipped report, and then that became I didn't follow the plan, and then that became more. If you can prevent that cascade, that speed bump can literally just be a bump.
Yeah. I think it was you that didn't you have a doctor on your roster, Berto, that you said that you kind of purposely did not make their prep as hard as you knew that it needed to be because they had like people's lives in their hands, kind of?
No, but I recall many preps, and this is it's hard to even bring up, but like you have to assess what an athlete is ready for. I think all sports kind of do that. Like, high school pitchers, like they know how many pitches they should probably throw during their high school career, and the same thing when you have, say, a young person from this background and they want to compete, and you when you're experienced and you've seen enough, you kind of know how far you want to push them. So I think with every athlete, it's because everyone has a breaking point. Everyone has a breaking point.
Yeah.
There's no one out there who doesn't, right? So,
And even the people who don't have a breaking point during prep. So I would say I'm almost that person. I can at least relate to. There are some people who would literally die. I'm not me. That's not me. But I've pushed myself to places where it has resulted in an injury, or it's resulted in things that I should not have done to keep going. We've had clients who have fainted and told us afterwards, and have been like, well, whatever, it is what it is. Anything is acceptable during prep to get from point A to point B, but there's always a cost afterwards. There's an off-season cost. There's a 48 pounds gained in 2 months. There's a divorce. There's someone who quit their job. There's someone who
lost their job.
Correct.
Yeah.
That there's something that bending creates a break that is in their mind outside of bodybuilding, but is really their life.
And some breakage is always going to happen, but you have to decide: am I okay with this? Right?
Yes. I wouldn't call it a break, but yeah.
There's little leaks here and there.
Yes,
but
there's a cost.
Yeah. But
yeah.
Some things it's just like, okay, no, you're a 16-year-old girl. We're gonna have fun with this, and when you're
keeping your
20s,
menstrual cycle.
Point,
Yeah, exactly.
We will go really hard, and some other coach might have just been like, oh wow, this girl has great genetics. I'm gonna make her stand out, and she's only 16. That's not right. So yeah, it's something that you do assess. It's like, what are they ready for? Like, we all can, not all athletes, but let's just say hypothetically there's a situation where you could add 75 pounds to this athlete squat in 3 months, but it's like, should you? You're right, and it's kind of the same thing with prep.
Yeah.
Should I get this person shredded, knowing the behaviors they currently have that I think will cause them a lot of problems post prep, where they may never even do a show again?
Yeah.
You can't know, and I personally always take the tact of we have a very open, honest conversation, and they need to acknowledge the aspects of their own personality that I'm worried about. Not just that they're, because a lot of times they'll be like, whatever, like I'll do whatever it takes and I'll handle the consequences. And I'm like, yeah, but I'm part of that.
Yeah.
Like, you need to convince me, not just you.
Yeah.
And if I'm not convinced, then I'm at least not gonna go quietly.
Yeah.
I can think of one particular athlete who I'm very proud of, who has competed at literally the highest level. And we competed multiple years in a row, but every time I said, I want you to take an extended off-season. Well, I don't know how to take an off-season. I just gain weight in the off-season. For me, the only thing preventing me from obesity, at least this is what in this person's head, is prep. And I said, I don't think that's true, and that's a problem. Don't you agree? Yes, it's a problem, but I'm not ready, and I'm also at the peak of my career. So it went pro card, pro win, top 2 at Worlds for this person. Not competed since, and I think that's the best outcome. That person, they got into strength sport, CrossFit, and had a healthy relationship with food, and they're loving life, doing things with their family, look great. They're not slowly sliding towards obesity. Not that I think they were before, but they, like, every time they were doing something I was not recommending, but they were going to do it, and so I'm on board, but I'm not going to sit here and be quiet.
Yeah. And like you said, it is hard to say because, sometimes and again, it's hard to say, but I've purposely not pushed an athlete to what their true potential is, knowing that there is more to life than bodybuilding.
Well, in long term, they're going to get further. That person we don't want to add 75 pounds to their squat, we will, and it's going to be safe.
It's going to be 90 if we do it a little bit slower, because, there's at least 2 or 3 people that I can think of off the top of my head that I purposely did not do what I knew they could do for their first show, simply because this person's got a future.
Yeah.
And they're going to, either with me or without me, with another coach or whatever, they're going to excel in this sport.
I don't want to burn them out.
And I don't want to kill them here. This person's 18 years old, or they're currently going through their residency as a doctor or whatever, They've got potential, and I'm not going to ruin their potential down the road for this particular show or for my notoriety or whatever, and that is kind of a hard thing to say as a coach, because I mean, everybody wants to just come to 3DMJ because we're the shredded glutes factory, you know. But,
or they think we're the that they can give us a bad scenario and we'll find a healthy way forward.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times when I've guarded against someone's potential or guarded against burnout, it's been talking them out of a prep completely.
Mm-hmm.
I can think of an example of someone who I'm still working with now, almost, I want to say it's 5 or 6 years after I talked them out of a prep, and they were like, hey, so recently had a kid, recently been divorced, but now we're getting back together, and I think I'm feeling ready for a prep. And I'm like, you out of your mind?
Yeah, this was just recently too.
Yeah, we need that. That's not something we're going to do, and that's actually a different scenario. And then I can think of another time where someone was like, "I want to start prep during my honeymoon. Like, I'll do that, and then just I'll just keep the honeymoon reason." I'm like, no. You're not going to ruin your marriage before it's even started. That's crazy.
Yeah.
How about a year after you've been married, email me. And then I've had a third person who was like, hey, I've got this. I've got a family member who's potentially terminally ill. I'm in the middle of schooling. I've just come off an injury, and I'm motivated. What do you think? And I'm like, no. Well, not no, but I never put my foot down. But I help them realize that there's a cost and that the stage isn't going anywhere, and that if you can set this up right, you can have it be way better than this.
Yeah.
Because we do have to consider that this one prep, we might be able to get you across the line, but at the cost of you never doing a prep again, or doing a prep without some of the people who are in your corner this time not being there next time.
Yeah.
And I think that's something that just does not come across in what are the 3 macros or your calories or all that stuff. That is critically important. And I hope that what we've talked about has really helped the listener understand that if you're going to wear the mantle of a coach, that is not just a word for someone who works with bodybuilders or works with athletes. That is someone who is helping someone get from point A to point B, but be able to stay there if they're Genpop, or be able to get that journey to be something they do multiple times if they love the sport, and not just I'm going to pretend we're operating in a vacuum and what do we do?
Hey everybody, it's Eric Helms. Thanks for tuning into our podcast. As you know, at 3DMJ we promote evidence-based approaches to the lifting community. If that's something you want to dive deeper into, I'd encourage you to check out my research review, Monthly Applications in Strength Sport, or for short, MASS. This is a review that myself, Dr. Mike Zerdos, and Greg Knuckles put out every month. We cover the latest research publications that are applicable to strength and physique athletes, or anyone who's looking to get stronger or improve their body comp. Our content is in both written and video format. For more information on how to subscribe, check out 3dmusclejourney.com/mass. That's 3dmusclejourney.com/MASS for further details. Thanks for tuning in.